The role of the evaluator is to provide both written and verbal feedback to the speaker. In addition to the work I do, each of you should have a small template that you can provide some additional feedback to Megan. And this is really a good time to provide feedback towards her first speech. It's the icebreaker one. I always look forward to the icebreaker speech. We have people that are in the club, we see them maybe do a table topics or two, or do report out on timing. This is the first time they've had to sit down, build a speech, and present the speech for, in this case, 4 to 6 minutes for the timer on the icebreaker. And Megan is interesting. Her background is a whole world different from mine, so I'm looking forward to hearing this. I grew up on a dairy farm, which meant our big travels and trips and stuff were something within an hour of the nearest dairy cow. We didn't get to travel big long vacations other than deer hunting. My dad either made sure none of the cows were milking then, or if they still were milking, he sold them or butchered them, one or the other. Nothing got in the way of a few days up north. But Megan's is altogether different. Hers is talking about all the traveling she's done. Within the icebreaker speech, the first goal of an icebreaker speech is basically to get up in front of the audience and do a speech. The second one is to discover the skills you already have, and that's part of the feedback that the group will provide. Hey, what did she do well? So really emphasize on your feedback, some of the areas she did well, and also the skills that need some attention. So also focus a little bit on some areas for improvement. Without further ado, I will bring up Megan Hayward in her first speech, The Traveling Nomad.
Thank you, fellow Toastmasters and all the guests here today. As Bob said, my name is Megan Hayward, and I've gotten to know a few of you just a little bit over the last couple of months, but to really know me and to really know what captures my heart, I have to tell you about my love for traveling. So I named my speech The Traveling Nomad as a nod to a quote by Isabella Eberhardt. And she says, "A nomad I will remain for life, in love with distant and uncharted places." So to me, the idea of traveling just lights a fire inside of me. I've loved it forever, and I think I like it for the same reasons that everybody else does. The experiences of, history, culture, you get to meet people, and of course have delicious food. So today I actually want to tell you about how my traveling experience has expanded and grown. I want to tell you how it's matured throughout my life, and it's probably matured in 3 different ways: geographically, gastronomically, and then internally. So geographically, each year brings me further from home. And I did grow up near a bunch of dairy farms. My father probably doted on us a little too much because we weren't having to work with all the cows, but we first started out traveling around Michigan. I have fond memories of being up at places like Tequamanon Falls. My father would paddle us in circles for hours. We teased him about it because we thought we'd get too close to the falls, but we were okay. So my parents really strove to show us around the United States our whole life, making sure we understood our home and really appreciated our home country. Because of that, we traveled east, west, and across probably almost all 48 states. They didn't bring us with them to Hawaii and Alaska. I don't know why. Next time, maybe. So as I approached high school, we expanded a little bit further geographically into Canada and Mexico. And with Mexico, got to do a few immersion programs as mini exchange student programs. That was really fun, so when I entered college, I did the same type of thing and was able to do a semester abroad in Australia. My parents, I think, were a little nervous I wouldn't come home, so they came home and made sure I returned on that flight. And then later I got to do more traveling experiences in college, working trips in the Dominican Republic and Cameroon. I absolutely loved them, and I've been able to go to more countries since. I think I've gone to all but 2 continents now. The geographical expansion and the traveling adventures there, that was pretty typical. Expected to start moving further and further beyond. But I was kind of surprised that my palate would mature with my travels. Didn't think I'd be adventurous with my foods. But I think as a young child I already was, and I didn't realize it. I remember being out east and having friends from Maine give me this drink called Orange Gina. Simple, it's just orange juice and like a soda lime pop. I drink it all the time now whenever I find it. It makes me smile just like I was a kid. And I think as I went into Australia, that's when my cuisine really got exciting. Kangaroos are cute and fun to pet, but they're also delicious steaks. I didn't anticipate that. And today's food was actually really applicable because my experiences in Australia showed me the Southeast Asian foods I had never really tried. And Indian and Thai food have now become some of my favorite cuisines to eat. I stated that I was surprised by my maturing palate, and that's because in my travels I never knew what to expect. In West Africa, the food there was distinctly different than anything I'd ever tried. Everything was even duplicated in its name. There were things called jama jama. I won't go into what it was, but it was fantastic. So, these cities and countries that I've gone to, paired with all these foods that I've tried, really are exciting and part of what I like about traveling. But the real exciting part for me is internally how I've grown. And that's always through the experiences with others, their perspectives, and how it's changed my view on life. Most of these times, I don't expect them, and I'm not prepared for those instances. I think my favorite scenario, my family and I were going to Mexico. I was taking a train ride to Chicago and expected to sit there and read my book. And there was a little old gentleman seated next to me. He was an Israeli priest who was moving to the United States to avoid persecution. In his broken English, he told me the tales of his life, a world that I could never have been placed in myself, very foreign to me. And tried to teach him some English out of the little children's book he had with him. I think it was written in England 30 years ago, so it was very humorous. But at that time, I hadn't even left the state yet. But through my conversations with him, I was with his life in a different country, in a whole different world, and it was so special. I really have enjoyed those that are traveling that I get to interact with, and when I'm traveling and interact with others. The other example I want to share, when I was in the Dominican, the lead on our work trip was a man from Canada. Big jolly man, and he brought his family, left his life that he'd known, and we shared a tiny little shot glass of coffee. I thought it was the sugar and the really high amount of caffeine in that really got my eyes open, but it was really his passion for life and the stories he shared. So my internal growth is definitely the favorite way I've expanded my travels and how I've grown. I've really liked it geographically and gastronomically, those are the fun parts. But it's really been a true pleasure remembering these memories and sharing them with you today. And I'm sure you'll hear more about them because I have more traveling to do and a lot more stories to tell. So, thank you.
Thank you, Megan, for the interesting speech. Really enjoyed it, and you took us through the whole world, from east to west.